What's up, my pretties? It's the Queen of Lions here, and today, welcome to another episode of Shadows and Pretties. Since this is episode 115, I am going to today talk about this zombie shooting game series. Now, most of you guys have probably have heard of this series, and most of you guys might have, who are gamers, must have played this. And it's a survival first-person shooter game published by Valve in well mid late 2000s, which is called Left 4 Dead. Now, the Left 4 Dead series is set in the days after the pandemic outbreak of a viral strain transforming people to zombie-like creatures. So, it is a zombie game. It actually is a pretty neat game for what this one is. So I'm going to basically talk about, when the games were released. Now, the first Left 4 Dead game came out in 2008 on November 17th. And then, surprisingly, Left 4 Dead 2 came out on the same day, but in 2009. It's pretty interesting because Valve is like a really big company that made games like Portal, Team Fortress stuff, Half-Life, Counter-Strike. You know, they make those kind of games, and they even made Left 4 Dead as well. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to sit there and talk about the first Left 4 Dead movie and explain what the first one is. So, the first one is basically a game where you are playing one of the four survivors and you have to get to rescue at the end of each campaign. Like the first Left 4 Dead, you've got campaigns such as Death Toll, No Mercy, Death Toll, Dead Air, and Blood Harvest. However, there are DLCs that did come out a little bit later, which one of them being what was it? Oh yeah, which the Crash Course came out in 2009 for Left 4 Dead, and then the Passing and the Sacrifice DLC. As they have Coldstream that came out for Left 4 Dead 2, the Pass came out for Left 4 Dead 2, along with the Crash Course and the Sacrifice. Now, since they were DLC, you have to get it on. You have to get Xbox Live for it. So yeah, I know it kind of sucks, but still. So, anyways, I'm going to basically explain the plot. It's an outbreak of a contagious virus named the green flu, which causes extreme aggression, mutation to the bodies, loss of lighter brain functions, essential to the zombification, or for those who catch it. Now, the story begins in Pennsylvania, Memorial Walls, giving names and obliteraries who have died in the infection. Suggests the game takes place in 2009 in October, 2 weeks after the first infection. We get four immune survivors named Bill or William, Zoe the college, Bill who is a veteran, Zoe the college student, Lewis the account manager, and outlaw biker named Francis, who make their way out of the city of Fairfield only to discover that the infections creating dangerous mutations. Like, for example, there's a smoker who is a zombie with a long tongue, a hunter, which is a zombie that pounces on people, the boomer, which vomits on everyone to attract zombies, the witch, who basically has long claws and, goes crazy when someone disturbs her, the tank, who basically is the boss battle of certain campaigns in that. So, yeah. Now, after narrowly escaping the new types affected, the survivors pass by alerted helicopter, which takes place in the No Mercy Hospital campaign. While fighting for the street of the subway and sewers, they are rescued from the hospital's roof, only to discover that he is infected, so Zoe has to kill him, causing a helicopter to crash outside the district city, finding an armored delivery truck. The group uses that to reach a small town on Riverside. But of course, I don't know where that is. I think it might be, somewhere in the States. I'm not really too sure, but that's from what I've seen. After encountering a man in the local church, they discover that the town is overrun and a boathouse is for a rescue, contacting, a small fishing vessel. So they are dropped off of a Newburgh across the city finding in the flames, resting in a greenhouse. So the survivors find a, well, big plane, so they had to go over to the airport. Now, the airport is basically, wasteland and destroyed when they get there. So, of course, they ended up getting in there to like the Allegheny National Forest in northwestern Pennsylvania, following the series of, train tracks. So, as they have to go to, the what was it? Oh yeah, the house. Well, like the farmhouse, they end up taking like a vehicle, and they stay at port side of Rayford, Georgia, and this is where the sacrifice part comes up, where Bill sacrifices himself to restart it so that the others may reach to safety while waiting for the horde to escape. The three remain members of the survivors from Left 4 Dead 2. They agreed to help the survivors in Left 4 Dead 2 relower the bridge so they can get across with their car, which is Lewis, Zoe, and Francis. So they somehow aboard their boat and they set sail for Florida Keys. So that's basically the plot of the first game. In my opinion, I really do like how the game had been laid out, such as the campaigns for the first one. The weapons were pretty cool. I liked using the weapons. The infected were really well made and detailed, especially with the zombies, the mutated powerful ones. There's like certain game modes like campaign, versus, survival, and etc. The development of Left 4 Dead somehow started in mid 2005, but Turtle Rock Studios aimed it for it to be a horror film inspired game that merges from the single player. But in Christmas of 2006, the publication of PC Gamer UK with a 6-page article describing the playthrough. So, yeah. So, of course, announced that Left 4 Dead, Turtle Rock Studios announced that Left 4 Dead on November 20th, 2006, was acquired by Valve on January 10th, 2008. Because the game was a long-standing relationship between the companies, they opened the Valve Steam system in 2008 on, well, October 15th. To give, Left 4 Dead the exposure, they financed around 10 million marketing campaign for the game itself. So, yeah, it was on development since 2005, but they were still in the process of making the game at the time. So, it got really popular back then, and it still is popular to this very day. So, I really do like how the game went out. It's a pretty good one. So I really do think that the game itself actually provided pretty good detail. Like, I know it got, sales on Xbox and PC and all that. It's a pretty good concept for the first game. Now that I talked about the first game, I guess I'm going to talk about the second game. Basically, the plot's kind of like the same thing, basically for survivors, but they are different survivors. They're not the same or anything like that. But the thing is, the second one came out in 2009, and basically the plot is basically kind of like the same. Like kind of like how Left 4 Dead 2, it is set in the aftermath of the worldwide pandemic of a disease named the green flu, just like the same. However, though, the Left 4 Dead characters such as Ellis, Nick, Coach, and Rochelle, they, traveled to, 5 campaigns that takes place in the story. One set in the, deep south, well, mainly. The story begins in Savannah, Georgia, then in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is pretty interesting since it takes place deep down, deep south. So that's basically where the Left 4 Dead story is about, when the first one took place in Pennsylvania. So there's definitely an interesting concept. Now, yeah, I don't really know what the survivors' fate really were at the time, because in the second movie, we were all confused on what happened to the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors. Like, what happened to them? Then we actually found out that they were most likely taken into military custody, but there's no explanation as to what happened to them since then. Like, there's like, I think it ended like Left 4 Dead 2 ended like a bit of a cliffhanger, Because this actually makes me wonder what happened to the survivors at the time when they were there, like at the military custody. Did they get killed? Did they get released? Did they escape? What happened to them? Well, that's always the question that we may never have an answer to. Unless you guys somehow manage to, come up with, one. Now the mutations on Left 4 Dead are pretty much the same, like with the zombies. However, there are new zombies such as, well, the spitter, the charger, and the jockey are the new guys that eventually came in. Now, of course, first with the game being, popular, the second one got a lot more popular than how, the Left 4 Dead game went out. Of course, there were a couple controversies. The cover art was actually, going on. As you can see right here, they actually have, some stuff, when it comes to cover art. Like, I mean, the cover art is very, very the same in that. So, yeah. Like, I mean, they have different kind of stuff. Now, Australian ban and unbanning of, the game and all that, from what I've heard, I think that's kind of dumb. But of course, there was some, racism accusations with, a couple people there, which, I mean, the game went into a lot of, trouble. The second one did, than the first one did, but eventually they got solved at the end. So that's one thing I really am proud of. Now, so I'm going to talk about the downloadable content for the two games. Now, I don't really know them entirely because I've never played them. So there's definitely that. But I'm going to definitely say the crash course is on Left 4 Dead, the first one, which is downloadable content or DLC, and it's a gap between No Mercy and Death Toll. Now, the passing in, well, the first DLC crossover with Left 4 Dead 2, it takes place, between Dark Carnival and after Dead Center. Now, The Sacrifice is a free chapter DLC for Left 4 Dead, the first one, which takes place after Blood Harvest, and it's considered to be a prologue to The Passing. Now, Coldstream is like the third DLC for Left 4 Dead 2, and it was announced on a blog post that Coldstream was released in beta in Steam, but it was released for the final form on that time. So, The Last Stand is basically a community-made scenario for Left 4 Dead 2, and yeah, it's pretty interesting. Now, there are some spin-offs and crossovers to Left 4 Dead, such as Pixel Force Left 4 Dead, which is a downloadable game where it's basically based on, the game as if it was for the NES, which is pretty awesome. Like, I've played it like maybe once or twice, and it's actually pretty fun. There's like Left 4 Dead Survivors, which is a version of Left 4 Dead that was released by Japanese arcades. There were the Mercenaries No Mercy, which is a PC return of Resident Evil 6, and it was released by, Capcom somewhat. So there was comics of Left 4 Dead, such as the Sacrifice comic, which I've never read the comic, but I actually heard it's kind of based on, what is going on, at the time. Now, there's merchandise of Left 4 Dead, such as, well, shirts, toys, statues, and etc., which is pretty amazing. Now, there is a canceled sequel to it, like a canceled third game. Like, a lot of players, from 2013 through 2016 were actually believing that, Left 4 Dead Free was going to be a target release of 2017. But at this point, Turtle Rock was no longer working with Valve, but instead had been developing, a multiplayer game called Evolve. And on April of 2019, Valve News Network reported that Left 4 Dead Free had been in development at some point by Valve, but had been canceled due to a few years earlier, as sits with the whole concept of its own self. Very unfortunate we didn't get a Left 4 Dead Free. Like, I mean, I really wish that it would be, released to the public. It would have been really interesting for the whole concept of its own self to make it, good, but unfortunately that's not the case. So, yeah. Now, of course, there are certain characters, but in the Japanese version of the arcade game, there were, certain kind of like people, but different concepts like Yuzuki, Haruka, Sara, and Blake, which those are the characters in the Japanese released version of it, which I think is pretty interesting. I really don't know the Japanese game really much because I've never played it, so there's definitely that. The gameplay is fantastic and awesome. The AI director, I mean, the bots of it sometimes, goes nuts every now and then, but it's still pretty interesting. Now, of course, with that being the case, I really found the game to be, quite amazing of its own self. Like, I mean, I've played it since I was younger, and I really like how, the game of its own self went out. It's like a pretty good concept for, the whole game itself. Like, I'm gonna sit here and say this right now. I actually did a crossover fan fiction of Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 called The Berenstain Bears and Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Now, I know it may not be, the best story I've, written. It's on Wattpad in case if you guys want to, check out the story. I'm not gonna go too much into detail on what the first two crossover fan fictions are about, but I'll give you a summary of what it is about for those of you who are curious to know what it is. Now, the first Berenstain Bears in Left 4 Dead is basically, it takes place on an episode Trick or Treat where brother and sister bear go trick or treating with their friends, cousin Fred, Lizzie Bruin, and they get captured by Witter Jones, who turns out to be, a psychopath. Well, not really a psychopath per se, but like kind of like a crazy person who ends up capturing, the cubs, like captures, well, brother, sister, Lizzie, and Fred, and Mama and Papa have to go down to, Witter Jones' house to save them. But as they go there, they end up realizing that they have been kidnapped and they found like a underground, cave like area in Witter Jones's basement. So they go down there and they end up going into the human world where they meet Zoe, Bill, Francis, and Lewis, who basically help them, get the Cubs back. I mean, the concept of its own self did seem to be, seem quite amazing for what this is. And I mean, I know some of you guys maybe like that story, and if you didn't like it, that's understandable because I know not everybody's, a fan of, what story I write. Like, not everybody's a fan of what story I do. Like, I know this is not really on topic or something, but I thought I'd point out that the Berenstain Bears and Left 4 Dead, the first one, is what I wrote back in 2018. Same thing with the sequel, which we'll get to. It's called The Berenstain Bears and Left 4 Dead 2. Now, The Berenstain Bears and Left 4 Dead 2 kind of does sound similar to the first one, but except there is a big difference with the first one. Now, the second one only has Brother Bear being kidnapped, and sister goes along with Zoe to save Brother Bear. So basically, Brother Bear goes with Tutal and his gang to do a dare, and Farmer Ben ends up becoming the villain, and we get new zombies, new characters. And the second one is when Ellis and Zoe fall in love. I decided to include that in just for the sake of it. I know it probably did not make entirely, made a whole lot of sense or something, but in my perspective personally, I personally, found the first and the second Left 4 Dead concepts of two games to be amazing. Now, to be completely honest, when I say this, I really liked how I made, the two stories come together. Like, it had a pretty interesting concept for both of these games and all. And, I haven't did a Left 4 Dead, Berenstain Bears crossover fan fiction in quite a few years, actually. I know I did the Christmas special last year. I narrated that last year. And, I mean, like, the story of its own self seemed to be, a pretty interesting, thing. Like, I might consider maybe making another fan fiction regarding that or something, but I really don't know what to even think of it. So, okay. That's something I'm going to sit here and say that now. It's a pretty interesting concept for what this one is. It's pretty like, I mean, I wrote those stories, back in 2018, and that was like before I started, making videos like creepypasta narrations and that. So yeah, I wouldn't really please be surprised. But anyways, with that being the case and with that being said, I'm gonna sit here and wrap up this episode of Shadows and Pretties. Now, as I'm always gonna say, this is simply my own personal opinion on, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. If you disagree with me, that's fine too. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you like it, that's fine too. Now, anyways, yeah, what did you guys think about the games? And what did you think of my two fan fictions that I wrote of the Berenstain and Left 4 Dead? Do you enjoy them? Did you not? Feel free to leave me now what your thoughts are on them in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you're new to my channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.